Dorian chords. Before I actually get into the Dorian chords, I want to go back and talk about a couple of things I didn't put in some of the other videos. One is that you can listen to any of the other scales in the key if you would like to at this point in a kind of a casual way. So all you have to do is stop on the root of whatever scale you want to hear as you go through the modal positions. For example, if I want to listen to the C Lydian scale down here, I'm going to stop on my C's. So there's C Lydian in that position. If I go up here, my C's are going to be here, here, and here. Etc. as you go up. Same thing. If I want to listen to the B Phrygian scale, I'm going to stop on my B's. I have two B's right here in this position. In the next position, B Phrygian. So you can do any of them up and down the neck simply by stopping on the roots. Another way to listen to the scale is to record the basic chord that that scale produces. For example, if you want another way to listen to the C Lydian scale, make a recording of C major 7 and then just run the notes up and down the neck of the guitar as you listen to that chord, and you're going to hear the C Lydian scale. It's in a very basic, it's a basic way of listening to it, but that's okay at this point. You can start to get your ears accustomed to these other scales. It's not a bad thing to do at this point. If you made a recording of B minor 7 and then ran the same notes up and down the neck, you're going to hear the B Phrygian scale. If you made a recording of F sharp minor 7 flat 5, then you're going to hear the F sharp Locrian scale. You can also do the opposite, which is kind of an interesting way to do this. You can record yourself running through the modal positions, just kind of up and down with no specific thought in mind. You don't have to play fast, just run the notes up and down. You can play in any position you want. Make a recording of that for 2 or 3 minutes. Then go back and play that recording back, and as you're listening to the recording of the notes, hit one of the chords in the key. If you have B minor 7, you're going to hear those notes on that recording sound like B Phrygian. And if you hit another chord, if I hit A minor 7, you're going to hear the notes on that recording now sound like A Dorian. It's a very useful way to listen to that, to open up your ears to what's going on here. You're already playing all the notes for all the scales in the key. You can only listen to one at a time though. So it's a good exercise to go through. Either of those or both of those are good. Okay, the other thing I want to mention is with the Dorian scale specifically, another good way to listen and practice the Dorian scale, listen to and practice, is as your A minor chord is playing, spend 10 to 15 seconds playing nothing but the notes in A blues. So when you do that, you're going to get basically a simple sound because you're only using 5 notes. After 10 or 15 seconds on those notes, start including the other 2 notes that you're not playing, which would be the intervals 2 and 6. So if you start by for 10 or 15 seconds, you're going to get, again, a very basic sound. Then if you start adding in the other notes, you're going to get a more melodic sound. It's a very useful tool for being able to build your solo from a simple sound to a more complex or a more melodic sound, and doing it on purpose. So having intent when you play is a very useful thing. So I would do that in every position and get it so that you can go back and forth easily without making any mistakes. That's useful. I guess that's it. Let's go to the Dorian chords. When I use the term Dorian chords, I'm simply referring to the chords that are generated from the intervals in the Dorian scale. So we have a basic A minor chord, or A minor 7, and to either of those you can add the 2, the 4, and the 6. And I'm going to suggest 3 ways that you can start doing this. First, let me show you some, actually let me show you what's in the book. Now, I'm not going to be showing this for every scale. It is covered like this for every scale. Every single one that's covered in the book is done this way. So what you see is over here is the neck diagram for the Dorian intervals. Okay, and I've got the intervals that make up the basic triad and seventh chord shaded. And the other intervals, the 2, 4, and 6, are left white. It's a very easy way and quick way to find many, many, many chords from this scale, whichever ones you want. Basic triads and seventh chords, or adding the colors in. Over here, I've just got demonstrations of those, just standard chord diagrams. In the box up there, you see A minor triads. In the box below down here, you see A minor seventh chords. And underneath each, I've added the colors one at a time. There's several ways you can practice adding colors. What I'm going to do right now is show you these chords that I have up here in this box. And what I did is I took the most basic A minor triad that you can play, the most common, one from each of the modal positions that we know, so that you can start to realize and visualize that chords are scales. There is no difference. A chord is a scale. So a good way to start realizing that, and also getting more voicings, more ways of playing these Dorian chords, is if I'm down here playing this particular A minor, I think we all know that one, and then I, one at a time, add in the notes that are in this position. And this was the open position of one of the modal positions that's up here, if you remember back. So there's the position. When we add notes into chords, we probably don't want to add notes in either on the 5th or the 6th string, because they can start to sound muddy. Plus, it kind of starts to change our root reference, which we don't want to do. We want to hear A as the root very clearly here. So what I'm going to do is take each note one at a time. Sometimes the fingerings get a little tricky. Sometimes you may have to omit a note on a specific string because the fingering gets too difficult. Not all the time, but sometimes. So I'm going to add each note in one at a time, starting with the highest note in that position. So each of these has a name. I'm not going to do all of these names, but if I add in a flat 7, then it's A minor 7. If I go down to the 6, it's A minor 6. If I go down to the 5, it's just back to the triad. I'm simply going down the intervals of the scale, but that's flat 7, 6, 5, 4, flat 3, 2, etc. All right, so here's what this sounds like. Any one of those is a Dorian chord that can be used any way you see fit. You know, you can make up little melodies with these things. So anything you want to do with them. So that's down here with this one. The next position, if we go up and play an A minor triad here, this might not be the most conventional in the world, but when you play in this position, it's about the most conventional one you're going to get. All right, so that's an A minor triad. If I do the same thing and add the notes in, again, I'm going to avoid the bottom 2 strings, and some of these fingerings get a little quirky, so I'm going to occasionally avoid a note or omit a note here and there to make my fingering a little bit easier, but A minor, that's a little tough, A minor 7, A minor 6, which just brings me back to A minor, and I'm going to add that D, which is, what do we got here? All right, and then back, and then, so those fingerings are a little bit more difficult than the previous position. And again, use these any way you want. All right, I'm not going to go through all that entire exercise for all of these. I'm just going to give you the other basic triad. So here's a very common A minor triad here that comes out of the next modal position. Okay, one that comes out of the next one. This, not too conventional, but you can either do it like this and put that root on the bottom there, or you can come over here and add another fifth onto the top. Any way you want to do it. And then you get back to the repeats. So that bar chord would be the same as this. So to each of those, you can add the notes of the modal position. You get a lot of voicings that way. It's a good exercise to go through. So that's one way. Another way is you can do things very intentionally, meaning, let me come to this A minor here that comes out of this position. Let's say I want to play an A minor 9. Well, there's two logical ways in the beginning to look for a 9. A 9 is a 2, so I can raise any 1 up a whole step and I'm going to find 2. So in this A minor, I have a 1 here and also a 1 here. So if I raise this 1 up a whole step, I'm going to get that A minor 9. If I was to take this 1 and go up a whole step, I'm going to get this A minor 9. Okay, but I can also take the flatted third and move it down a half step. So whichever color I'm looking for later, whether it's a 4 or a 6, those two 4s and 6s sit in between two intervals in the scale. So whatever interval is on either side of it, you can move one up to get the color you're looking for, or move the other one down. So flat 3 right here, I can move it down to a 2. So that's an A minor 9 that doesn't happen to have the flatted third in it. So that's doing things intentionally. Suspended, I'll start with this one again. Taking a flat 3 and going up a whole step. So that's A minor suspended. I can take a 5 and go down. So I'm going to omit that note on the first string because it's too difficult. So those are A minor suspendeds. How about a 6? Well, I can take a 5 and go up. Okay, so you can do the same thing with 7th chords. I'm going to now show you the common 7th chords, A minor 7th chords. So we've got this. Common A minor 7 here would be this. And for convenience, I'm always using this open A string, usually, not always. Okay, this A minor 7 we know, but you could also do this. Okay, if you come up here, common A minor 7 is this. And again, each one of these is coming out of the next modal position as I move up, as you see me move up. Okay, A minor 7 here. Okay, and then you can be back to this. So you can do the same thing with the A minor 7s that we did with the A minors. Last way that I want to tell you to work on the Dorian chords is just a kind of a visual exercise. Now, this is really useful. If you think you've run out of ways to play Dorian chords, I'm going to tell you I don't think so. Not after you see this. Because this can be done with any starting chord. What I'm going to do is start on something very obvious. This is an A minor triad up here. Alright, I'm going to use that open A string again. All I'm going to do is take each note one at a time and move down to the next successive note. I could actually do these up if I wanted to, but today I'm just going to demonstrate these moving down to the next note in the scale. Now these all have names, you know, I was taking the 5th and moving it down to a 4th. I'm not going to bother with the names right now. Then I'm going to take the note on the 2nd string and move it down. Then I'm going to take the note that's on the 3rd string and move it down. Every one of these is a Dorian chord. Now I'm going to go through that process again. Okay, and then whoop. Alright, if I move down again. That can be done with any chord.